In the tumultuous twilight of the 1960s and the dawn of the 1970s, America found itself at a profound historical inflection point. A nation fractured by the Vietnam War, convulsed by civil rights struggles, and adrift in a sea of generational rebellion, seemed poised on the precipice of an uncertain future. Yet, amidst this societal maelstrom, an extraordinary and unexpected spiritual phenomenon began to stir. Thousands of young Americans, the very embodiment of the counterculture, disillusioned with traditional institutions and yearning for authentic meaning, turned not to new philosophies but to an ancient faith. This was no conventional revival, emerging from established pulpits or hallowed cathedrals. Instead, it blossomed on sun-drenched beaches, in communal houses, through raw, heartfelt music and fervent street preaching. It was a movement that defied categorization, challenging both secular norms and religious conventions. For historians and students of religion alike, this raises a compelling question. What was the Jesus movement? And how did this seemingly ephemeral spiritual awakening leave an indelible, often paradoxical, mark on American culture and the very fabric of its religious landscape? The genesis of the Jesus movement was not within the hallowed halls of theological seminaries or the staid confines of mainline denominations. Rather, it emerged from the very heart of the counterculture, a vibrant tapestry woven from protest, experimentation, and a profound disillusionment with the status quo. College campuses, once bastions of academic tradition, became epicenters of anti-war demonstrations and radical social thought. Young people, often labeled hippies, actively repudiated the materialism and perceived hypocrisy of their parents' generation. They sought an authentic existence, a truth untainted by political machinations or consumerist desires. In this fertile ground of spiritual hunger, a surprising transformation occurred. Christianity, long associated with establishment and tradition, suddenly acquired a radical countercultural allure. This unexpected resonance with an ancient faith, amidst a generation rejecting nearly all tradition, presents a fascinating historical and religious paradox. They were affectionately and sometimes derisively known as Jesus people or Jesus freaks, labels they often embraced with defiant pride. Their appearance starkly contrasted with the buttoned-down piety of traditional churchgoers. Long hair, flowing garments, bare feet or simple sandals, and a pervasive aura of peace and love became their visual hallmarks. Their message was one of radical personal transformation, forgiveness, and an experiential encounter with Jesus Christ. This emphasis on personal experience over rigid dogma marked a significant departure from earlier American revivals. While previous awakenings often stressed theological precision, the Jesus people prioritized a felt presence of God, valuing authenticity above strict orthodoxy. This raises a crucial question for religious studies. Was this a genuine return to the simple communal faith of early Christianity, as depicted in the Book of Acts, or a syncretic blend, shaped more by the prevailing 1960s counterculture than by historical Christian tradition? The answer, perhaps, lies in the eye of the beholder, reflecting the complex interplay of historical context and spiritual interpretation. One of the most enduring and culturally pervasive legacies of the Jesus movement was its revolutionary impact on music and Christian media. Prior to this era, Christian music largely remained within the confines of hymns and traditional gospel, rarely crossing into mainstream popular culture. The Jesus movement, however, fearlessly fused folk, rock and roll, and blues with explicitly Christian lyrics, creating a vibrant new sound. Artists like Larry Norman, Love Song, and later Amy Grant articulated themes of faith, doubt, struggle, and redemption in a vernacular accessible to young Americans. This cultural innovation was monumental, giving birth to what we now recognize as contemporary Christian music, CCM, a multi-billion-dollar industry. For historians, this shift represents a pivotal moment in the commodification and popularization of religious expression. For religious scholars, it prompts a deeper inquiry. Did the Jesus movement fundamentally alter Christianity's core beliefs and practices, or did it primarily transform its presentation and packaging for a contemporary audience? Understanding this distinction is crucial for assessing whether it was a genuine theological renewal or a highly successful cultural adaptation. The emergence of the Jesus movement presented a profound challenge and a source of considerable tension for established churches and denominations. Many traditional leaders, accustomed to structured worship and doctrinal adherence, struggled to comprehend or embrace this unconventional spiritual outpouring. Some, with prophetic foresight, welcomed it as an authentic revival, a fresh manifestation of the Holy Spirit working in new and unexpected ways, opening their doors to these long-haired, unconventional believers. However, a significant portion of the religious establishment viewed the movement with suspicion, fearing its perceived lack of theological discipline, its emotionalism, and its departure from established biblical teaching and institutional order. This created a palpable friction between institutional faith, Christianity as an organized religion with established practices and hierarchies, and experiential belief, Christianity as a personal, often charismatic, encounter with the divine that transcended traditional forms. This historical tension forces us to ponder a perennial question in religious history. Can authentic spiritual vitality be sustained long-term without institutional structure and theological education, or does too much structure inevitably risk stifling genuine spiritual experience, reducing faith to mere ritual and tradition? This dialectic between structure and spontaneity has shaped religious movements for millennia. Beyond its immediate spiritual fervor, the Jesus movement exerted a significant, albeit often subtle influence on American attitudes toward community, social service, and personal morality. Many participants, imbued with a renewed sense of purpose, established new churches characterized by contemporary worship styles and informal structures. They launched numerous nonprofit organizations dedicated to social justice, ministering to marginalized communities including drug addicts, runaways, and the urban poor, groups often overlooked by mainstream religious institutions. Some of these nascent Jesus movement gatherings, initially small and unconventional, eventually blossomed into major evangelical institutions, including influential megachurches, Christian colleges, and expansive media empires. Yet, many other expressions of the movement, intensely vibrant in their moment, gradually faded as the cultural zeitgeist shifted and participants matured, entered conventional careers, and started families. This dual trajectory compels historians to ask, was the Jesus movement primarily a temporary revival, an intense but ultimately transient spiritual awakening that eventually dissipated? Or did it represent a permanent cultural shift in how Americans practice and understand Christianity, leaving an enduring legacy that continues to shape the religious landscape? The evidence, in its complexity, supports both interpretations, highlighting the nuanced nature of historical impact. By the late 1970s and throughout the 1980s, many of the distinctive elements that once defined the Jesus movement began to shed their countercultural edge and integrate into mainstream American Christianity. Contemporary worship music, featuring guitars, drums, and praise choruses, gradually replaced traditional hymns in thousands of churches, becoming the new standard. Informal church settings, meeting in homes, rented warehouses, or casual community centers, evolved from radical alternatives into widely accepted models of congregational gathering. The emphasis on personal testimony and sharing one's spiritual journey became a central, expected component of worship services. What began as a rebellious protest against perceived religious stuffiness and formality, slowly, almost imperceptibly, became the new tradition itself. This historical trajectory presents a profound question for both historians and religious scholars. Can a movement born from protest and counterculture genuinely retain its original spirit and authenticity once it achieves mainstream acceptance and institutional success? Or does success inevitably entail a degree of compromise, diluting the radical elements that initially fueled its power and appeal? This pattern is a recurring theme throughout religious history, where movements that begin as challenges to established religion often over time become the new establishment, grappling with the inherent tension between prophetic zeal and institutional stability. The indelible fingerprints of the Jesus movement are clearly visible across the landscape of modern American Christianity. Casual worship styles, where congregants dress as they please, are now commonplace. The vast and diverse Christian media ecosystem, encompassing music, books, films, and podcasts, mirrors secular entertainment industries in its production values and reach. Faith is frequently articulated as a deeply personal journey, an individual relationship with God, often prioritized over corporate tradition or denominational affiliation. This emphasis on personal freedom and direct spiritual experience, so central to the Jesus people, continues to resonate deeply within contemporary religious discourse. However, this prioritization of individual spiritual freedom and personal experience has also introduced new challenges that contemporary religious communities continue to grapple with. The rise of extreme individualism, where each person interprets faith largely for themselves, can lead to fragmentation into countless independent churches and movements. It also raises questions about biblical interpretation without the grounding of denominational consensus or rigorous theological training. While these are not inherently negative developments, they represent complex consequences of prioritizing personal spiritual freedom over institutional authority and historical tradition, shaping the ongoing evolution of American religious life. As we reflect on this pivotal period, let me leave you with some critical questions for historical and theological contemplation. Did the Jesus movement genuinely renew American faith, injecting authentic spiritual vitality back into Christianity? Or did it fundamentally reshape Christianity into something distinct from its historical antecedents? Did it succeed in stripping away burdensome religious baggage, bringing people closer to the core teachings of Christ? Or did it inadvertently distance believers from historical Christian tradition in ways that created new challenges? And perhaps most pertinently for our present moment, what does the Jesus movement reveal about the enduring human search for meaning and spiritual solace during times of profound national upheaval and crisis? Understanding this history offers invaluable insights as we navigate our own complex and uncertain times. The Jesus movement emerged from one of America's most uncertain and chaotic periods in the late 20th century. It offered a beacon of hope, a sense of identity, and a profound purpose to a generation desperately searching for meaning, not through institutional power or political influence, but through genuine belief, authentic community, and radical personal commitment. Its influence continues to echo powerfully across American culture and Christianity today, in ways both overt and subtle, shaping the very contours of contemporary faith. This has been The Scholar's Ledger, where history, faith, and power are meticulously revealed. Subscribe, share your insightful thoughts in the comments below, and join us in the ongoing vital search for truth.